Welcome to Daily English Room. Today's topic is books. Do you enjoy reading books?
Yes, though I must admit I'm more of a practical reader. I love browsing through cookbooks and food-related literature. It's both entertaining and helpful for my career.
What kind of books do you usually read?
Besides cookbooks, I really enjoy food memoirs and books about different culinary cultures. I'm currently reading Anthony Bourdain's works to improve my English while learning about kitchen life.
Do you prefer physical books or ebooks?
For recipes and cooking, I prefer physical books. They're easier to keep in the kitchen without worrying about spills. But for other reading, I use ebooks, especially when traveling.
How often do you find time to read?
In my profession, timing is quite unique. I actually do most of my reading during my afternoon breaks between lunch and dinner service, probably about 2 hours total. Late at night after my shift, I usually spend another hour reading to unwind. Mondays, when the restaurant is closed, are my big reading days.
Do you like to discuss books with others?
Yes, I'm quite passionate about discussing books, especially with other chefs. We have this informal book exchange at work where we share our favorite cookbooks and food memoirs. It's fascinating because everyone brings their cultural perspective. My sous chef from Thailand recently introduced me to some amazing books about Asian cooking techniques that I wouldn't have discovered otherwise.
What was your favorite book when you were a child?
There was this Brazilian children's cookbook called Brincando de Cozinhar, Playing at Cooking, that I absolutely adored. It had simple recipes with colorful illustrations, and my mother and I would cook from it every weekend. Looking back, that book probably sparked my interest in becoming a chef. I still have it in my professional kitchen as a reminder of where my culinary journey began.
Have you ever given a book as a gift? What was it?
I actually love giving cookbooks as gifts. Last Christmas, I gave my entire kitchen staff copies of The Flavor Bible. It's become our kitchen's reference book. I also recently gave my niece, who's learning English, a bilingual Portuguese-English cookbook for beginners. It's been wonderful seeing her experiment with both cooking and language learning.
Do you like reading books in different languages?
Yes, I read in Portuguese, English, and I'm starting to read simple texts in Spanish. Each language has its own rich culinary terminology, and sometimes concepts just don't translate exactly. Reading recipes in their original language helps me understand the authentic techniques better. Though I must admit, technical cooking terms in English were quite challenging at first.
Has your taste in books changed over the years?
When I was younger, I mostly read fiction and sports magazines. Then as I started my culinary career, I focused almost exclusively on cookbooks and food science texts. Now, I find myself drawn to food anthropology books, culinary memoirs, and books about sustainable cooking practices. I'm also reading more about different cultural food traditions and their histories.
How do you choose which books to read next?
I have a unique way of choosing books. I follow several renowned chefs on social media and note down the books they mention. I also love browsing local bookstores when I travel, looking for regional cookbooks. My sous chef and I have this informal book exchange system where we recommend books to each other based on what techniques or cuisines we're currently exploring.
Do you take notes while reading?
Yes, my cookbooks are full of notes. I use a color coding system: red for recipe modifications, blue for ingredient substitutions, and green for plating ideas. For books about food history or culture, I keep a digital notebook where I record interesting facts that I can share with my restaurant guests. Sometimes these notes even inspire new menu items.
What's your favorite place or time to read?
Late night after service is my prime reading time, usually between 11 p.m. and 1 a.m. I have this comfortable armchair in my home kitchen where I love to sit and read with a glass of wine. On my days off, I enjoy reading at local cafes. There's something inspiring about reading about food while watching people enjoy their meals.
Have you ever started a book but couldn't finish it?
There was this molecular gastronomy book that I started but couldn't finish because the scientific terminology in English was too advanced. However, I turned it into a learning opportunity. I'm now taking an online course about food science to build my technical vocabulary before trying the book again.
Do you have any reading goals for this year?
My main goal this year is to read one book each month about a cuisine I'm not familiar with. So far, I've covered Ethiopian, Korean, and Persian cooking. I'm also trying to read more about sustainable food practices and zero-waste cooking. I keep a blog in English where I review these books, which helps me practice my writing.
What was the last book you recommended to someone?
I just recommended Salt, Fat, Acid, Heat to my entire kitchen team. It's perfect because it explains cooking science in a very accessible way, and the illustrations make it easy to understand even if your English isn't perfect. We've started discussing different chapters during our pre-service meetings.
How has reading helped you in your career or studies?
Reading has opened so many doors in my culinary career. Through books, I've learned about cuisines I haven't had the chance to experience firsthand yet. Professional kitchen management books helped me when I became head chef, and reading food science books has improved my understanding of cooking techniques. Last month, I completely revised our menu based on ideas from various cookbooks.
Do you remember the first book you read in English?
My first English book was Kitchen Confidential by Anthony Bourdain. I struggled with it at first, but my passion for cooking kept me motivated. I kept a notebook of cooking terms I didn't know, and now I use that same notebook to teach English kitchen vocabulary to my junior chefs.
How do you make time for reading despite your busy schedule?
Working in a restaurant means unusual hours, so I've adapted my reading schedule. I read digital cookbooks on my phone during prep time, and I always read for an hour after service ends. It helps me unwind. Sunday mornings are sacred for reading physical cookbooks and planning new menu items. I also listen to culinary audiobooks while commuting.
Have you ever read a book that changed your perspective on life?
The Omnivore's Dilemma completely changed how I think about food sourcing and menu planning. After reading it, I started working more closely with local farmers and revised our restaurant's supply chain. It also inspired me to start our restaurant's small herb garden and composting program.
Do you have a favorite book series?
I love the River Cottage cookbook series by Hugh Fernley Whittingstall. Each book explores different aspects of sustainable cooking and seasonal ingredients. The series helped me develop my philosophy about using local ingredients and reducing food waste. I've read each book multiple times, making notes about how to adapt the concepts to Brazilian ingredients.
What do you think about book adaptations, movies, TV shows?
I find cooking show adaptations of cookbooks fascinating, especially when they show techniques that are hard to understand from text alone. However, I've noticed that TV shows often oversimplify complex cooking processes. As a chef, I prefer the detailed explanations in books, but I understand that visual demonstrations can be helpful for home cooks.
What book would you like to read next?
I'm eager to start reading Gastro Obscura, a food adventurer's guide. It explores unique and lesser-known food traditions from around the world. As a chef, I'm always looking for inspiration, and I think this book might give me ideas for fusion dishes that combine Brazilian cuisine with other culinary traditions.
What advice would you give to someone who wants to start reading more?
From my experience, treat reading like trying a new cuisine. Start with what looks interesting to you. Don't force yourself to read important books if they don't excite you. I started with simple cooking blogs and worked my way up to more complex culinary literature. Also, join a reading community. My kitchen book club keeps me motivated.
If you could write a book, what would it be about?
I'd write a book about the evolution of Brazilian cuisine, focusing on how different cultural influences have shaped our food. I'd include traditional recipes with modern twists and stories from local producers and farmers. It would be bilingual, in Portuguese and English, to help preserve our culinary heritage while making it accessible to international readers.
That's all for today's daily English room conversation practice. Thank you for joining us. If you enjoyed this video, like, leave a comment, and hit the subscribe button. See you next time.